Game face, bro. Game face.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm back with Laurin Conlin, and today we're going to discuss the topic of strength training as it applies to physique athletes specifically. It used to be kind of a taboo thing that physique athletes in general trained in the rep ranges that strength athletes typically would use, but it's kind of become a lot more common these days. And with the 4 days from now, Laurin is actually competing in a powerlifting meet. And as you know, she just won her pro card in bikini. Now, those two things, powerlifting and bikini, at one point they probably didn't mix, but I think those types of taboos are going out the window, and we're getting into an era where strength and performance can also be tied into a physique athlete. So I'm going to hand it over to Laurin for a second and get her perspective on when she got into training, specifically using power rep ranges, power movements, and how she has applied that to her training. So explain to us what that means to you.
So a few years ago, I met my now current boyfriend, Ryan, and we started powerlifting, and I was just kind of doing it at the gym, and then that's when I started training with Lane also. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I started this powerlifting thing, is there a way we could add that into my training? And so I've always kind of had it as a foundation for my training, and squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, any kind of heavy compound movement like that. When I was doing figure, I focused a lot on back work also. Yeah. Heavy rows, that was also a big thing for me, not so much now. But I've always had it as the foundation, but as I get closer to a competition, if my body fat decreases, I expect some performance decreases, and I'm okay with that, right? Because normally I'm not training for a powerlifting meet. It is ironic that we're doing the video now, but I do have my first meet, and so I said, okay, for this 12 weeks, I'm going to focus, because I always focus on physique with power. Right now I'm doing, power with, physique on the back burner for this time, because I'm not going to half-ass something. I want to either get stronger or, so I wanted to be the best I could for the meet.
I heard something recently, and it stuck with me, and it was like, it's like a old Chinese analogy. If you chase two rabbits, you catch none.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that, because if you try to do powerlifting a little bit and physique a little bit, you might not be great at either.
Yeah. So
you're basically taking 12 weeks of your life, which is not that much time, and you're going to focus, and I'm sure Ryan's happy about that, because, he gets to tell you what to do for 12 weeks.
Yeah. Because, so I run a style of training called Conjugate. So I have, I do have a lot of accessory work and special exercises so it's not just the main lifts in my training. So I do have a variety of accessory movements and more bodybuilding type things, we would call it. But that has definitely taken less of a precedence over, I need to get on stage in X amount of weeks and look this way, because I needed to focus on the main lifts. So it's just a little bit of a shift, which I think was necessary in order for me to get stronger and actually, maximize that strength potential. So we'll see how I do. But then afterwards, I'll have a few weeks off before I start prep for my pro debut. And that being said, when I switch to that, I will focus the exercises more towards physique, but using the power movements. So with Conjugate, we have special exercises, so I can do a variety of the main lifts. So, for deadlifts, like block pulls, that takes a lot of your quad activation out and increases, hips, glutes, hamstrings. So I'm going to add a lot of that because I can use heavy weight to build up the areas that I want to. Right. Another example would be box squats, things like that. Overhead press, I won't be benching as much because it's not necessarily towards my goals. So things like that, and then I'll up the accessory work, because I won't be upset if that kind of gets in the way of the power training, because I'm not doing a meet. So it's all like a balance, I feel like, and I kind of feel like there should be like a 60-40, 70-30 type of split.
Sure.
In my opinion. So, you always kind of focus, I'd say 60-40 probably.
Well, let me ask you because you come from an exercise science background. Laurin has her bachelor's degree from Florida State University. She's currently, enrolled at SF as a master's student. So in your educational experience, where do you see what the research has shown with regards to strength training versus a typical hypertrophy type training with regards to fat loss program?
Well, we actually just went over this the other night, and you were guest lecturing.
Yes.
So basically what they're showing, there's a couple things. When you're dieting, you're at a higher risk to lose lean body mass, which is negative, obviously, for a lot of reasons. In bodybuilding, you clearly need to maintain your muscle mass, and it also helps with your metabolic rate. So you can lose a lot of weight, but if you're losing a lot of muscle mass with that, your metabolism is just going to go down the toilet.
Sure.
So resistance training seems to preserve that. And there used to be the myth, oh, I'm going to diet, I'm going to cut, I need to do a lot of reps, a lot of sets, but lower weight because I'm trying to not be bulky. And the traditional, oh, I'm going to bulk up, 1 to 6 rep range, and then I'm cutting 15 to 20. And it really doesn't need to be like that. They actually show that you maintain more muscle mass if you lift heavier while you're dieting. So when people ask me, oh, what's your rep range? I say 1 to 30. I mean, literally, sometimes I'll be doing a conservative max or a real max, and then there's other times where I'm, doing a lot of volume, but because it's lower weight, higher reps. So I switch that up according to my goals, and really within every workout, essentially. Also, they've shown that especially with the muscle fiber types, so type 2 muscle fibers, obviously you're going to be more likely to grow hypertrophy. And if you're using heavier weights, you're going to, improve that. So for, bikini, I'm a bikini girl, I don't need muscle. Well, yes, you do. First of all, your glutes are a muscle, and you need muscle. So don't be afraid and think as a girl, oh my God, I can't lift heavy. It's just I'm going to blow up. I've tried, it doesn't work.
We're all trying to get too big. It doesn't happen. It
doesn't happen. I promise. And I don't think your glutes could ever, be too big. Well,
my wife might disagree with you.
But
because mine, not because of hers, by the way.
So, I mean, there's definitely research out there to show what we're suggesting, and that's what I've done, that's what you've always done, and I think it's a really good combination.
Not always. I'll say I didn't
always.
always. So, because, you're a baby.
Okay, yeah, not always. Okay, when I first started, I didn't do that.
Everybody say happy birthday, Laurin. Put it in the comments. Yay, happy birthday. 22?
23.
23 now. Oh my gosh. So, I've been training almost as many years as Laurin's been alive. I know it's hard to believe because I have such a youthful appearance, but so early on in my career, I kind of bought into more of the never train below the 6 rep range, stuff like that. It wasn't really until I was introduced to Lane and what he was doing with his power hypertrophy setup, where he would incorporate reps under 6. And oddly enough, it was about that time that my physique took a major change. It made a major shift in the density of muscle I carried, the amount of muscle I was able to maintain when I dieted. So yeah, I've been around. I started, training in the early '90s, and that was when this was still very uncommon. I think now most of the viewers that are listening to this are aware that we're going to preserve more muscle by doing the things that allowed us to get it in the first place. You don't really change your strategy. You lift heavy, relatively heavy, and safe, and there will be times during prep or during a fat loss phase when you have a bad day or you get to a point where you have to sacrifice a little bit, but that doesn't mean you should just stop training heavy.
I'll take that back. I didn't always used to do that. I say I always used to do that because that's when I started heavily competing.
Sure.
But the years before that, when I was still learning what to do, I didn't incorporate powerlifting until those few years. And then that is when I started competing more, and I saw the big shift in, again, how I looked, how I maintained muscle.
What are some of your favorite lifts that are specific to you as an athlete and a competitor that you find to be the most beneficial?
Definitely deadlifts. number one.
Yeah.
Deadlifts, in my opinion, are king. And I also sumo pull, so that really works my glutes, which
Yes.
is clearly important for bikini. And then second would definitely be overhead press. And just because, I mean, even though my overhead press is not impressive at all, but I feel like that is one of the most...
To you, it might not be impressive, but...
It recruits
just for
a lot.
shoulder development.
Shoulder development, and it's a very athletic movement, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's a compound lift, so it's going to be...
Now, do you do them standing or seated?
Standing.
So you're bracing,
Yeah.
you're using your core.
I'm doing all that.
Yeah, so.
And when I was doing figure, the heavy rows really made a big difference for
Yeah.
me. I noticed I had to start rowing about 3 times a week, and just all varieties, you know, heavy, light, different grips, wide, close, you know, everything. And that really made a change for me also. I love squats, but I think deadlifts, for my physique reasons, are superior. But I do love squats, and I'm talking about real squats, not bodyweight squats. Everyone on Instagram who does that. But so I think those to me are the best. Not just
that's
not just the movement.
That's the fun
just the
thing that I
composition.
actually took. I took the daily undulating periodization model that I learned from Dr. Zordos and kind of applied it to other areas of my training. For instance, you know, as a bodybuilder, I'm very interested in building my lats. The 3 big power lifts, they're great, but they're not necessarily lat builders. You know, that you get some lat activation in deadlifts, but it's more of a static position. So I started doing lat pull downs and bodyweight pull-ups using the DUP model, more frequency, more volume, tracking that, and noticed an immediate response, and I'm still enjoying that. So yeah, I'm applying it to other areas. So yeah, you don't have to do just the power lifts.
Yeah. I think people get really caught up with that. You know, you say powerlifting, and automatically everyone thinks your entire life has to just be squat, bench, deadlift, you know, a few times a week, you sit around, you do nothing else. And that's just not what we do. And that's what most powerlifters do, actually. But specifically what we're talking about is we blend both styles of training. And it's worked for me, it's worked for you.
Yeah.
It's fun, I think, because
I like the aspect that basically when you put a training block together for a client and you have something in there like a squat or a deadlift or a bench or an overhead press, and you're building in some periodization for them, and then there's going to be a period where they're going to compensate and they're going to hit some PRs. And that's always important for an athlete who's improving, not only strength-wise, but hypertrophy-wise. And I think having those kind of goals in there, like, you know, at the end of the block, if you were doing a 400-pound deadlift before the block, and at the end of the block you get a 415, that's exciting. You're making progress.
I wish.
Well, you know,
we'll see this weekend.
the numbers are relative. I think, you know, especially for us, we kind of train with some freaking elite athletes, and there's times where I can get down on myself because I hold myself to that standard. But when I compare myself to my numbers that I used to do, you know, if I'd have told myself 10 years ago I'd be lifting the weights that I'm lifting now, I would have thought, wow, you're amazing. But then I see people warming up with my maxes, and I think, you know, do you even lift? So, you know, I try to hold myself to my own standard, but the idea is that I'm constantly making progress. Laurin's constantly making progress, and that we're always trying to get a little bit better for ourselves, and, you know, applying it to anyone that we know, be it friends, clients, or anyone that's interested in learning.
So in conclusion, I would say some takeaway points. Don't be afraid to lift heavier, but also don't neglect high rep, high volume work. Everything has a time and a place, and you can incorporate both without, you know, sacrificing one for the other, in my opinion. And, you know, add in the big lifts, and you can see kind of progressive improvements, which is really fun, especially for physique athletes, because, you know, it's a more, you know, objective kind of goal, and it's going to help preserve the muscle mass that you've wanted to gain from all of your training. And
it can be a long time between competing. So, like, you know, it can be a year or 2 or 3 for a bodybuilder or a figure athlete or a bikini athlete to be on stage. So what's going to keep you focused throughout those, you know, weeks and months of not having a deadline at the stage? And, you know, I've found these powerlifting meets and setting, you know, some strength goals really helps keep the training intense for the days and times when you're just not feeling it. It really keeps things moving, keeps it interesting. So, certainly. All right, guys. Well, that's it. This is Laurin Conlin. I'm Paul Revelia from Physique.com, and hopefully we'll be coming out with some more videos. If you guys have questions, comments, click the subscribe button below, comment below for us, and we'll try to get some more videos out regarding any topic that we think is valid. All right.
Hope you enjoyed.